Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our seminar today, which is on unlocking cross-border capital flows and investment opportunities by private funds, insights on developing a climate change investment fund. It's a bit of a mouthful, I'm afraid, but the seminar today is organized by Shenzhen Green Finance Committee and Hong Kong Green Finance Association to launch the GBAGFA Climate Change Investment Fund report. My name is Chun Chen. I am the Secretary General for the Hong Kong Green Finance Association, and I will be guiding us through today's proceedings. Before we commence, I just wanted to quickly run through a couple of housekeeping items. First is that the session today is eligible for CPT points. So if you are looking to claim CPT, then please complete the survey, which will be posted at the end. The second thing is, and my apologies to people joining us online, is that we will have some networking drinks after the session. So please feel free to stick around and mingle and meet with the panelists as well. So we have a pretty packed schedule today. So let me first invite to the floor Georgina Locke, who will give welcoming remarks. Georgina is Head of Market Development External Department for the HKMA. Georgina.
Thanks, Yun. Thanks, everyone. I'm Georgina from HKMA's Market Development Division. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me today to speak at this launch event for the research report of the GBAGFA Climate Change Investment Fund Working Group. It is my pleasure to be here. So I think today's event is a very timely one. I think tackling climate change requires substantial resources, and I'm sure many of you have already heard, that according to market estimates, Asia alone needs $66 trillion of climate investment over the next 3 decades. So with green development being a basic principle of the national strategy for Greater Bay Area development, the region also faces increasing investment needs as it expedites the use of renewable energy and also green upgrading of its manufacturing industry. These investment needs require mobilization of substantial amounts of resources, both from public and private sectors. And as an international financial center, a gateway to mainland China, as well as Asia's sustainable finance hub, I think Hong Kong is well positioned to help channel resources to support climate financing needs, particularly those in the GBA. In fact, the outline development plan for the GBA released in 2019 already stated the support for Hong Kong's development into a green finance center. This would contribute in turn to the GBA's sustainable development. So what have we been doing so far, to support Hong Kong's role in promoting becoming a green finance hub and promoting green and sustainable finance? The HKMA, together with other financial regulators and government agencies under the Cross-Agency Steering Group, the CEEX, have been working on, a multi-pronged approach to promote the development of green and sustainable finance in Hong Kong. Most recently, in early May, the HKMA issued the Hong Kong Taxonomy for Sustainable Finance to enable informed decision-making on green and sustainable finance and facilitate relevant finance flows. The taxonomy encompasses 12 economic activities under 4 sectors, including power generation, transportation, construction, as well as water and waste management. In developing the taxonomy, we have been guided by the principles of interoperability, comparability, and also inclusiveness. What we hope to do is to facilitate easy navigation across various references out there, including the Common Ground Taxonomy, China's Green Bond Endorsed Project Catalog, and also the European Union's Taxonomy for Sustainable Activities, especially in terms of the relevant metrics and technical screening criteria. For example, when we look at electricity generation using solar photovoltaic technology, the Hong Kong taxonomy incorporates criteria related to photoelectric conversion efficiency taken from the CGT. Another example is the construction of buildings, for which we have referenced Hong Kong's local criteria, the BEAM+, the mainland China 3-star system, as well as relevant EU criteria and thresholds. Through these efforts, the taxonomy can help promote common understanding on green activities and facilitate informed investment decisions by market participants, such as GBA climate funds, and in turn enhance green finance flows in the region. Looking ahead, a key priority area for the CESG is also transition finance. This is a challenging area, as all of you may know. Unlike green activities where we already have identified a common ground, the definition of transition has been much more dynamic. Corporates, depending on industry size and location, could vary vastly in their approach to carbon neutrality. However, we believe it is essential to support transition. For some hard-to-abate sectors, which are also key economic players, options to decarbonize may be limited, and we simply cannot leave them behind by cutting off them from financing. So at the HKMA, we have also been actively contributing to this agenda to promote transition finance through standards and regulation, investment, as well as facilitation. Firstly, as a banking regulator, we will be incorporating transition activities in the next phase of our taxonomy work. At the same time, we are also assisting banks in their transition planning processes. On the investment front, as a major global asset owner and responsible investor, we continue to advocate a pragmatic approach towards transition. Finally, in terms of facilitation, I'm sure some of you may know that we have recently extended our green and sustainable finance grant scheme to support bond issuers and loan borrowers in their bond issuance and also external review process. We have expanded the scheme's coverage to include transition bonds as well as loans. According to an early study by the Hong Kong Green Finance Association, the GBA requires substantial amounts of financing to support its transition process. Therefore, we believe our efforts above are highly relevant to the GBA, and we will continue to work closely with the industry as well as other stakeholders in further enriching Hong Kong's green and sustainable finance ecosystem, so that Hong Kong can fully grasp the opportunities in this space and also contribute to the GBA's as well as the country's path to carbon neutrality. With this, I would like to congratulate the GBAGFA working group on the launch of their research report on climate change investment funds and look forward to reading its findings and recommendations. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Georgina, both for your support here today, your update, and obviously the HKMA's leadership in terms of the taxonomy and the transition. We very much appreciate that. And now for our second speaker, I'm delighted to welcome to the floor Ms. Han Bing. Han Bing is the Director of Green Finance Service Department for China Emissions Exchange Shenzhen for her opening remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, partners, colleagues, and members of the media, greetings to you all here in the vibrant city of Hong Kong, where we gather to launch the first phase research report of the GBAGFA Climate Change Investment Fund Research Working Group. Our working group members include Hong Kong Green Finance Association and some of its members, such as its co-chair, PwC, the Macau Association of Banks, Shenzhen Green Finance Association. The lead organization of this working group is Green Finance Committee of Financial Society of Shenzhen Special Economic Zone, referred to as SZ-GFA. As a representative of SZ-GFA, and also China Emissions Exchange Shenzhen, I am deeply honored to share with you, to share our preliminary findings with you. Today, extending a warm welcome to fellow professionals from Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Macau, and beyond. SZ-GFA, the lead organization of this research work, is a nonprofit research and work coordination professional committee established by the Financial Society of Shenzhen Special Economic Zone in 2017 under the guidance of the Chinese Finance Association. SZ-GFA's main work objectives include promote the innovation of products and services in green investment and financing, promote the concepts, tools, and methods of green finance, promote the green finance cooperation between Shenzhen and Hong Kong, support the implementation of the National One Belt, One Road green strategy. Since its establishment, the Secretariat of Shenzhen GFC has been located in China Emissions Exchange Shenzhen. In the past 2 years, our Climate Fund Research Working Group, driven by the spirit of innovation, has delved into meticulous research and exploration on the policies, mechanisms, and practices for the construction of the Climate Fund. Shenzhen, as the forefront of China's reform and opening up, and a leader in technological innovation within the Greater Bay Area, has provided a solid foundation and immense potential for the establishment and the development of the Climate Fund. Through its unique policy advantages, robust industrial base, and open market environment. In order to guide domestic and foreign capital to climate change mitigation and adaptation projects, Shenzhen has carried out the construction of the Climate Investment and Finance Project Pool. Up to now, Shenzhen has conducted several rounds of project collection for the pool and has identified a cumulative of total 196 projects. These projects covers 6 major areas, include low carbon energy, low carbon industry, low carbon transportation, low carbon buildings, resource recycling, and low carbon technologies and services. Also, these projects have a total financing demand of 41.1 billion yuan. All these projects will reduce about 1.91 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year after all these projects is implemented. Besides, more than 20% of these projects is outside Shenzhen, such as they are in Guangdong province, Shanxi province, and Heilongjiang province. So this project pool has significant positive impact on the entire country. China Emissions Exchange Shenzhen is the operating organization of Shenzhen Climate Investment and Financing Promotion Center. So we will continue to provide investment and financing matching services for those projects. In addition, Shenzhen officially announced the launch of the formation of the Green Low Carbon Climate Investment Fund in September last year. This fund is positioned as a government-oriented, government-guided, market-oriented private equity investment fund. The initial fund size is 2 billion yuan. Carbon emission reduction will be one of the quantitative criteria for project benefits. In order to fully stimulate the fund managers, their excess earnings will be linked to the overall environmental performance evaluation results of the fund. As a next step, Shenzhen will carry out open selection of fund managers. Looking ahead, Shenzhen GFC and the China Emissions Exchange Shenzhen, as important members of the GBA, Climate Investment and Financing Cooperation, will continue to help Shenzhen collaborate with Hong Kong, Macau, and other cities in the GBA and promote the Climate Fund to enter into deeper application and practices, so as to contribute to the realization of the Greater Bay Area's goal of carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. Here, I express my gratitude to all who have contributed to this research work. Let us seize this launching event as an opportunity to collectively paint a blueprint for sustainable growth in the Greater Bay Area. Thank you all.
Thank you, Hanjo, for those for sharing the details of those projects. Very, very interesting. Now, to share with us the details and findings from the actual GBAGFA Climate Change Investment Fund report, which is basically the culmination of coordinated efforts from the GBAGFA, I'd like to welcome someone who doesn't read an introduction, Florence Yip, who is not only from PwC, but also our GBAGFA working group co-lead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Georgina Locke, Ms. Han Bing, and dear colleagues from the GBAGFA, Ms. Chen Hai-O, Hai-O Zhou, and also Mr. Henry Chow, Ms. Manny Gang from Macau, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to present to you our Climate Change Investment Fund Research Report today. I'm actually very honored to co-lead the Hong Kong team under the guidance of the project lead, the Shenzhen Green Finance Committee, and the China Emissions Exchange Shenzhen. So a while ago, Ms. Han Bing has already explained to you the composition of the GBAGFA members. So in particular, I would like to show to you on this list members of the Hong Kong team who have made such great contributions in terms of doing research and also joining numerous conference calls and also reading so many drafts of the report that come to fruition today. So you can see quickly on the Hong Kong team, members actually comprise fund managers, tech firms, lawyers, think tank, and specialists in green and sustainability, financial accounting, valuation, and taxation. So the project actually took more than a year to complete. The project cutoff date is actually first quarter this year. You will appreciate that some of the data mentioned in the report is kind of out of date, but please pardon us because we need to have a cutoff date. So it's a cutoff date is Q1 this year. And of course, it took some time for the translation and addition, etc. So now today we proudly present the report to you. The report actually is not that horrendous. I have a copy in front of me. It's not that thick. Actually, only 66 pages to read with appendix. So excluding appendix, 66 pages. But the executive report is only like 2.5 pages, right? So our baby, okay? Right. So you may download the report. Since you are more environmental friendly than me, I'm from the old school, so I print the copy out. So you may download the report, on your computer on this by quoting this QR code, or you can download it from the Hong GFA website, which I am pleased to hear from Chun that it was already available starting this morning. So very good. Thank you. Okay, so the framework of the report actually covers, as you can see on the screen, starting from policy developments, market developments, why private funds are important, and we explain the regimes of private funds in the mainland China and Hong Kong. And then the meat of the report is the key challenges to grow climate funds and recommendations, as well as regulatory and tax recommendation. Actually, the framework is laid out by the Shenzhen project lead. So very good, you know, because they have given us a very clear framework. So the team members would have, you know, very, very focused to work on the details of, you know, the framework. Okay, so in terms of policy developments, our report actually looked into policy developments from a global as well as from mainland China and Hong Kong perspective, of course, paying special attention to GBA cities, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, in particular. Policy developments, as you all know, are always evolving. So what is shown on the screen is not a comprehensive list. We only highlight just a few. In the mainland, we all know that given the 30-60 goal, so national and local authorities have issued various guidelines and action plans, and we can expect more and more to be issued. Likewise, and in Hong Kong, the Green and Sustainable Finance Cross-Agency Steering Group, of which the Hong Kong MA is a key driver, continues to issue guidelines and action plans too. So, and of course, we are very pleased and very excited, in fact, a bit anxious to read the Hong Kong taxonomy launched 2 weeks ago. I have yet to complete reading it, so, so don't ask me a question about Hong Kong taxonomy, okay? All right. So, on market developments, in our report, we looked at both at the national level and at the local level or the GBA level. Now, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and other cities in the mainland have issued implementation plans and guidelines on climate change investments. As Ms. Han Bing has mentioned, that Shenzhen actually is is a pioneer in releasing 2 batches of database of climate investment and finance project repository, as you can see on the screen. Total 196 financing projects with a financing demand of equivalent of $5.8 billion US. So I think it is a very pivotal, you know, in creating this database. And they also, in Shenzhen, they set up this Green and Low Carbon Climate Investment Fund. Fund size initial is 2 billion RMB, 282 million US dollars. So for fund managers here, in case you are keen in seeking, you know, some seed money, you may want to give your name cards to representative from Shenzhen here, which you will meet during the network session. So in Hong Kong, you know, we also have some notable market development, which on the screen I only quoted only 2 out of many, okay? So we have this Green and Sustainable Finance Grant Scheme extended to 2027 that Ms. Georgina Locke has mentioned. And also the Hong Kong Stock Exchange has launched a stage and climate, core climate, etc. Now, when we talk about climate financing, people either on the street or people in central or people in financial market, people in the media, they usually would often immediately think of, oh yeah, that's easy, government funding, government bonds, corporate bonds, bank loans, yeah, it may be some mutual funds. What's the problem? Okay. However, the problem is we have observed that private investment funds, being a significant source of capital, are often overlooked or underlooked, depends on which way you look, okay? So, I mean, including government authorities, not many people understand how private funds works because seems to be a bit, it's not public anyway, so it's not open to everybody. So now let's look at some statistics. According to the China Securities Investment Fund Association statistics, as of third quarter of 2021, there were 800 private funds, and the AUM is about 58 billion US dollar. Okay, now, so in our report, so it's a very crucial moment of our preparatory work during the project, because initially initially the title is Climate Change Investment Fund, so it could encompass public funds as well. But then we discussed with the project lead, and we thought that public funds have lots of attention already, while as private fund it has got under attention. So we will focus our research on private funds. So happily, everyone agrees. So we embark on the journey of a lovely 20 months of working together. Okay, so the key focus of the report is that private fund managers can effectively and efficiently deploy international investors' monies to a climate change projects of different sizes and locations. Now, this is very different because private fund managers can more easily work across the borders, invest across borders than banks, okay, or then government bonds or private or corporate bonds, okay? So more agile. So the private fund managers, they would make investment that meet investors' requirements on risks, returns, and green and sustainability, etc. So the private fund managers are agile, highly incentivized through the fee and carry interest structure, and with low market entry thresholds that are unique to private funds. So they are more agile in seeking high return, acceptable risk projects than other financial market players, such as banks. The unique fee and carry interest structure and the small team size of private fund managers usually. We thus should seriously take actions to entice private funds to meet the climate change financing needs and to find out key obstacles and challenges that are hindering the growth of private funds investing in climate change targets. So if it's that good, why they are not coming? Why they are not coming to my market or our market? Why they are not going to the targets that really need the funding? So this is the next point of our report research. Okay. So first of all, our report is not trying to solve the problems of the world. Well, our report is we are very humble. We start with GBA because we think if we can come up with a prototype, identify the obstacles and issues in GBA. Hopefully, if we could resolve all or some of them, we can branch out our business model through beyond GBA, hopefully. So our report, first of all, start to look into the so-called double Q regimes in mainland, the QFLP and QDLP regime. So many of us are probably very familiar with these two regimes. Nonetheless, excuse me for still spending a minute or two to go through that. So QFLP stands for Qualified Foreign Limited Partnership, QFLP. And of course, as a manager, QFLP manager. So QFLP refers to funds raised from domestic and overseas investors. In this regard, domestic refer to mainland China. Overseas means ex-mainland China. Investors privately and mainly invest in the equity interest of non-publicly traded enterprises in China. Surprisingly or thankfully, there are different rules in different locations in regard to the investment scope, capital contribution, and investor threshold for QFLP fund in the mainland. For example, Shenzhen has no requirements or explicit restriction on the size of the fund. QFLP manager, also the capital contribution and investor threshold vary in different locations. And you'll be pleased to hear that Shenzhen has no explicit requirements. Now, for QDLP, QFLP focus on FDI, foreign direct investment into China, and QDLP is ODI, outbound investment from China, out of China. So QDLP actually allows overseas investment fund manager to raise funds from qualified domestic investors for overseas investments. So fund managers here, if you are interested to raise, to tap into the China investors pool, then QDLP or QDIE in Shenzhen could be a source of fundraising. For capital contribution, there will be a minimum capital contribution and payment period. However, that varies from location to location in mainland, and same for investor threshold. Now, it's notable that in Shenzhen, they have a special vehicle called QDIE, which the full name is Qualified Domestic Investment Enterprise. In Shenzhen, it's got quite a high quota, $10 billion US. So hopefully, if you are not listening up till now, you will wake up now. So Shenzhen has $10 billion US QDIE quota. We can ask our Shenzhen friend how much has been allotted up to now. So then you know how much you may be able to raise from Shenzhen. And also for QDLP manager, QDIE also need a QDLP manager or QDIE manager. The capital contribution and investor threshold also vary from place to place. So you can see on the slide that the Shenzhen has also some unique favorable treatment to the manager. Okay, now these are the sort of outline of the two Q regime or double Q regime. However, in China, we do have foreign exchange measures. We are all aware of that. However, there's no specific foreign exchange regulations or guideline on QFLP and QDLP funds. And also for tax policies, there are no specific measures on QFLP and QDLP. You need to refer to the general China income tax law. Okay, now it comes to our favorite part, the Hong Kong part. Many of us here are working on the Hong Kong fund regime. We have two private fund regime, LPF and OFC. So I won't delve into the details. Now, one thing is we all have this Hong Kong profit tax exemption regime. We seem to be quite happy about it, but of course, there are still a lot of rooms for improvement. I will explain to you later on the rooms for improvement. And I understand the government has been working quite diligently to deal with those issues, which I will explain later. In Hong Kong, there's no foreign exchange. The fund can be in any currency denomination. And also, last but not least, the Hong Kong fund structure can be very flexible. We can have a standalone fund, umbrella fund, fund of funds, and master feeder fund by using the OFC and LPF structure. Now, key challenges to grow the climate funds and recommendations. Now, we have, first of all, these 5 recommendations or 5 issues are all focusing on the so-called green and sustainability. Okay, now, for example, now I don't attempt to go through them one by one because I've been reminded of time limit. Okay, I just take one as an example, fragmentation of green taxonomies. Okay, let me go to my notes. Okay, now, I think like many of you, I'm also very baffled by all these rules, EU taxonomy, the Green Catalogue of China, ASEAN taxonomy, etc. The varying definition present challenges to investors and financiers because it's difficult to compare investment opportunities, and that would increase the complexity and cost of due diligence, and also would create opportunities for greenwashing. So in our recommendation, that of course that was made before the 3rd of May, the Hong Kong taxonomy was issued. So we recommend the funds should adopt globally accepted taxonomies, such as Common Ground taxonomy. And so that would, like the Hong Kong taxonomy, to enable informed decision-making and facilitate finance flow. The other thing I want to highlight is recommendation number 4, or the challenge number 4, inadequate trusted data. So, the accessibility, availability, and reliability of climate or sustainability-related data and information are one of the major challenges encountered by investors and asset managers. Sustainability disclosure standard by SSB is definitely a positive development. However, fragmentation data source, significance of data gaps at company, asset, or activity levels remain to be the headache to investors and asset managers. So our recommendation is to fill the data gap, for example, by using artificial intelligence technologies, which could be leveraged to capture and discover hidden ESG and climate risks in real-time needs. So in the interest of time, I will move on to the next slide. Okay. In order to attract private fund managers to utilize and to invest in climate change projects, regulatory and tax certainties are of paramount importance other than green standard sustainability. So regulatory certainty, taxation certainty are of paramount importance. So many items on this slide are actually common to private funds investing in China. Any uncertain situation would affect private fund manager considering to invest in climate change projects in the mainland. Hence, we include these challenges in our report. So I'm not going to go through all the recommendations. I just take a few examples. First, clarify, can a Hong Kong managed LPF get a 10% withholding tax treatment automatically without going through burdensome paperwork? That is important, you know, because in particular, in the Shenzhen 18 measures, the Qianhai 30 measures, and in now the Hong Kong Chief Executive's policy address last October, they all mention Private Fund Connect. So, and in particular, the Qianhai 30 measures stated Hong Kong LPF could be treated as QFLP. So we are all delighted by this sentence. However, we still have not seen the implementation rules. So devils are in the details, or angels are in the details. So we hope to see the implementation details. The other thing I just want to highlight is item 3, for example, can QFLP funds provide shareholder loan to the investee target subject to certain threshold? We note that in certain cities in China, certain cities already allow shareholders loan to be advanced to investee target subject to certain thresholds. So it would be good if, say, if Shenzhen want to promote its QFLP, if you can sort of Shenzhen also stipulate a percentage. Or you can say if you invest in climate change target, then the threshold is X. That would be very, very much welcome. So last but not least, Hong Kong. So, for item 1 to 3 on the slides, the recommendations, in the Hong Kong budget last February, February 2023 and 2024, so twice already, our financial secretary mentioned that the Hong Kong government will review Hong Kong taxation regime for private equity funds and the carry interest incentive. And we understand the draft consultation is a work in progress to be issued when ready. So we hope that it won't be issued the day before a public holiday. But sometimes it happens, so we'll be delighted to work overtime. Okay. All right. So also item number 4, we would recommend the government to consider profits tax concession for Hong Kong operating companies with climate change features. At the moment, Hong Kong only offer accelerated tax depreciation on investments in green plant and machineries. However, we all know that climate change transition financing would involve more than just investment in plant and machineries. Okay. All right. So I know my time is up. So I want to close this presentation by sincerely thanking the Shenzhen project lead and all the team members. Our project team, with the support of the Shenzhen project lead, will take follow-up actions to meet with relevant government authorities, seeking the buy-in and support to address the key challenges, as well as to consider adopting the recommendations presented in our report. Of course, we also need your support to promote and implement climate change investment funds in GBA and beyond. After you have a chance to read our report or executive summary, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you.
you very much, Florence, for that very comprehensive overview and for pointing out, highlighting the certain sections of the report which we should look to. You mentioned it's only 66 pages, but I'm sure, like me, I preferred you to walk me through it. So yeah, now look how to explore how we can take the findings and this important piece of research and convert it into the development of climate change funds. I'm very honored to have to ask to join the stage our panel, which is comprised of Dr. Ivan Lee from the CGS International Holdings Limited, Executive Director, Cindy Ngan, partner at PwC, Lincoln He, Head of Product Globalization at Miotech, and Penelope Shen, partner at Stevenson Harwood. Over to you, Ivan.
Hello, good afternoon all. I'm Ivan. I'm very happy and very honored to be here to talk with some expert like the consultant expert, our Cindy, the law expert, Penny, and then the tech expert, Lincoln. So may I have invite our panel to have a quick discussion, quick introduction for yourself. Cindy first, please.
Yeah, I'm Cindy. I'm a partner based in Hong Kong from PwC, focusing on ESG. So delighted to work with a group of experts, putting it all together. So happy to, take any questions, but, through the conversation later on, we'll share a little bit some of the insights from the report.
Yes, hi, I'm Penelope Shen. Everyone calls me Penny. I am a investment funds partner at Stevenson Harwood. So I specialize in investment funds.
Thank you. My name is Lincoln. I'm from Miotech, head of globalization, and our company is one of the largest sustainability solutions provider here in Asia. And we do cover a range of solutions, including data, software, and consulting. So happy to be here with everyone today. Thanks.
I'm Ivan from CGS International. So we actually a state-owned company directly under the Minister of Finance. And we are also, my department is called the Institute for Carbon Neutrality. It's first of this kind of, the financial institute to set up such kind of a department to, to help channeling the investment towards climate change. So that's why we are four here, just like Florence introduced. Our report cover the fund part, the consulting part, the law part, and the tech part. So maybe I have a very quick warm-up question first. China already set up its own carbon peak and neutrality target, right? 30-60. So for each of us, actually, we need to pay for that, right? Not only government, even though us, individual, need to pay for it. So for example, like Cindy, may I ask you how much you would like to pay for the climate target, for the 30-60 target? How much you want to pay?
Well, it depends on the return as well, but well, if the
return is
maybe
neutrality.
Okay, maybe $1 million because I have 2 young kids, right? That's for the contribution to our planet as well. So maybe is $1 million enough?
Do you think enough? Anyone raise the hand? Do you think enough? Okay, actually, the answer is on our section 1. Okay, please read our report. For the minimum estimation from our report, we already sum it up. It's a 130 trillion. Okay, for China to achieve. So each of us actually that means need to be 100,000. Okay, for each of us.
And a minimum.
As a minimum target. So you can check. It's a table. Now this is a minimum number. So you know why? We cannot rely on only government for the past like China only putting subsidy for for example like or maybe a policy to mandatorily require the company to reduce their carbon emission. That is the old fashion. For now, actually, we what mainland China, because I'm a state-owned company, I very frequently do go business trip in mainland China, and so actually China now already setting up, launching the first batch of trial for so-called climate financing and investment pilot. So there's actually 23 cities and areas. For example, like in Great Bay Area, we have Guangzhou, Nansha, and also Shenzhen, Qianhai, as one of the so-called in mainland China, it's called 气候投融资. Okay, in English, it's like climate financing and investment pilots. So already the first phase of this kind of pilots, actually, they are setting up a new kind of infrastructure and also the scheme to channel, like what I mentioned, the investment towards combating the climate change. So it's like, because our team is actually supporting Guangzhou, Nansha for those kind of pilot to implement. They set up a lot of like what Florence summed up just now. For example, like QFLP, they have some policy subsidy for that. And also like, for example, if the talents today sitting here, if you move to Nansha, they will have some, not subsidy, they will have some incentive for you, right? For example, some money for your team to setting up there. So any company for law, for consulting, for even to tech, if you're setting up a company there, but I'm not doing promotion for them. Yeah, but like Shenzhen also have such kind of policy. Yeah. Yeah, Futian, Shenzhen, Futian. But yeah, actually China already trying, different kind of a city. Also, we also assisting another one called Xinyangshi in Henan province. So that's a different way. In Nansha, it's actually near Great Bay Area. So the focus is quite similar to what Hong Kong doing, right? To bridging up the mainland China and Hong Kong and also overseas. But for Henan, Xinyang, the main focus is on how to do the climate mitigation. Right, for example, like the flooding, like the extreme weather, how it incorporate to that, because Henan Xinyang is actually a farming province. Okay, it provide a lot of the very well taste rice if you want to buy again, right? Anyway, so it's not another promotion, right? But I just want to tell you that in mainland China there are actually some new scheme for us to trying and us to exploring how to for like Florence mentioned, how to unlocking cross-border capital flows and investment opportunity. So, okay, but in Hong Kong and in overseas there are also other kinds of what's that, government initiative to promote green finance and fund development. So my question is now to pass to Cindy first, maybe. How are you seeing this?
Obviously, this is fantastic, right? Because, obviously government incentive is very important to support corporates on the supply side to action. So other investments can come as well. So I guess, to attract foreign investment into China, obviously there's quite a lot of consideration. What Florence earlier mentioned, right? Certainty in terms of policies, right? Tax regime is extremely important to international investors. And obviously, the bar in terms of when we talk about, climate investments, green investments, taxonomy we mentioned, right? Many different sort of variation definitions and whatnot. If we do want to attract international investors to come in, we do need to think about using some more internationally accepted taxonomy. So common ground taxonomy is one of them because it's a comparison between the EU and the China one. So we look forward if, there are more funds going to be established wanting to attract international investors, that's probably one of the key things to think about. Because I think international investors always ask the question, and concerned about greenwashing, how green is this? Right. So I think this is some of the things that are quite important to, boost investor confidence.
Okay, I think from Cindy's side, I see a lot of opportunity. How about Penny?
Well, I can only focus on the legal side, so I'm going to talk about the policies that we are seeing. I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record today because I'm going to keep talking about the Hong Kong taxonomy that was just launched. Just now, Georgina also mentioned, Florence also mentioned that that has just been launched. Is really exciting. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But also not to forget, our government has also announced a roadmap to adopt the ISSB standard starting from January 1st, 2025. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing that. That's not really exactly for funds yet. Starting off with the listed companies, but I think echoing what Cindy is saying, to attract investors investing in Hong Kong and in the region, you definitely need to have a common indicator for investors to invest in Hong Kong and the region.
How about Lincoln? Maybe besides Hong Kong, like how you see from overseas?
Sure, Ivan. Actually, it's good that you mentioned about the government incentives. So we also have an office in Shenzhen. I'm sure we enjoy some of the nice benefits that's subsidized there. Like we said, we're doing a cross-border capital flow discussion here today. So not only that we're seeing the development of the regulations here in China and Hong Kong, but globally, what we should be also aware of. And what we see from, I think, technology providers' perspective is that we observe a trend of all the regulations actually tightening. So also it will be a big trend, I think, whether it's the regulations in development and it's more sophisticated ones. It's going to be a trend, and then this will increase the demand of data transparency. And this is general trend, I think, was critical in the investment field. So that's why I think where the data company will come in, or technology company will come in, is to bring this clarity and data, and for investors and all stakeholders alike. So I think that's something that the next challenge we're looking at is to how can we scale this? How can we have more companies and funds and asset managers that adopt more technology that's fitting for the scenarios they're going to use? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like government also play a quite vital role. In mainland China, central government also, pay a lot of attention on promoting those kind of investment in this kind of climate change issue. So actually, like in early of this year, China's government, 中央政治局, I don't know how to translate, okay, anyway, so central government, they announced that actually they want to focus on 5 sections. The first is called technology, so what Lincoln said. The second is green, the third is the pension, the third is the inclusive finance, and last one is the digital, also Lincoln. So actually, there's, the investment is like a pool. But how much you would like to just to channel it flow into which kind of area? So we can see I'm in charge of the CGS, the whole group, the green finance part. But we see there's also some opportunity and chances. For example, some overlap between different sections. For example, like EV is one of the main focus that mainland China now want to channel the invest towards. So like EV, actually there's a part of kind of, a combination of the green finance and also the technology finance. So we can see a lot of overlap between among those kind of 5 areas. But, in Hong Kong, maybe Hong Kong government, she already left, so maybe you can talk more. Hong Kong government is another kind of style, right? Not like China. So mainland China is like, actually they will have a policies, guidance. So all of us kind of like those kind of a stay-on company, we will follow. So like us, we will just, to put all our resources toward this 5 area to follow up those kind of guidance. But how, for example, Penny, you see Hong Kong's, what you can see or what you want to say? Yeah, please share.
Sure. I mean, Hong Kong obviously is slightly different. Like, for example, the Hong Kong taxonomy is used voluntarily. You're not required to use it. But having said that, I think in Hong Kong, I can only talk about, the framework, what Hong Kong has to offer for these green funds to come to Hong Kong, to be investors to come to Hong Kong. Because I think Florence already mentioned quite a few. As a lawyer, I do believe Hong Kong has a very independent, transparent, and effective regulatory regime. The SFC and the Hong Kong MA does a great job together with the other regulators. And then again, the Hong Kong fund structures that were introduced, I think OFC was introduced in 2018, and then the LPF 2020. I did some counting yesterday. It's very difficult to count the numbers. I think Hong Kong OFC as of now has about 360 of them, and the LPF has more than 700. So Hong Kong's funds market with its own vehicle is definitely picking up a lot of traction. There's a lot of good reason to use the Hong Kong structures, the tax regime, the private funds tax exemption. There's a lot of tax tax treaties between different jurisdictions with Hong Kong. And the cost, not to mention the OFC, everyone loves the SFC grant scheme covering 70% of the setup cost. So again, you know, Hong Kong has all that is provided for asset managers to come to Hong Kong. And I think also adding to that, Hong Kong also have ESG funds. They are, I know we're focusing on private funds here. ESG funds are more for retail funds. But as yesterday, Cindy counted it. There are 235 ESG funds that has been authorized, listed and unlisted, and 28 are classified as climate under the SFC website. So I think what can be shown here is that SFC does have a vision as to what kind of requirements these fund managers need to fulfill to set up an ESG fund. And we have a good platform, good basis, and regulator to review all these requirements. And last but not least, disclosures. Lawyers love disclosures. All the fund managers now, since 2020, have to comply with the climate risk disclosure. That will, I believe, will continue to evolve because, as I said, the ISSB standard is coming in. I think it will be a little while later before fund managers will need to look at that, but it's definitely coming.
So maybe I'll just supplement what Penny just mentioned. When I look at that list of funds, it's actually quite interesting, right? You know, the 235 funds, SFC authorized ESG funds, but there are only 28 that is designated just climate. What about the rest? The rest actually has much broader sort of, you know, focus in terms of overall sustainability. But I guess one thing that, you know, it's neat to draw out also is pure, because our study was trying to look at pure green assets. And it's just not easy to find quality pure green assets. And one of the things that continue to scale potential, you know, investment funds in that space and support our carbon neutrality or net zero, we do need to look into other potential sort of instruments. And transition finance is one of the major, you know, area that, you know, a lot of, you know, financial institutions are looking into. However, that is still developing because we still need, you know, the principle to be solid and also taxonomy around that area to make it to work. So I think that's one of the areas potentially we can also look into, and different sort of asset classes as well. So it's not just private equity and whatnot, right? You know, private credit, that's another areas to look into potentially, so we can potentially scale a lot more in terms of investment fund choices and whatnot.
Yeah, talking about scaling up, you know, Florence also mentioned there's a lot of challenge, but we don't want to make the sense like a lot of challenge. But maybe one of that is like the data, lack of the trust data. So maybe like Lincoln, give up some hope how, yeah, from your angle, how the tech can help us to, you know, to build more trust, and then, you know, to finally to scaling up those kind of investment.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Ivan, and thank you, Cindy. So when we talk about technology and sustainable finance or climate-related investments, I think there are two major areas we're trying to address. One for us is data quality, and the other one is work efficiency. So when we talk about how technology can empower the life cycle of climate-related investments, we can kind of see it in multiple aspects. So one thing that when Cindy were mentioned about how do we identify those green assets is very relevant to pre-investment identification. So that in this stage, the goal is for us to find these green assets, right? To find the investment opportunities that are important to us. So now the data, now we can see the environmental data and market data are very fragmented, and there's an overflow of these data, and how it's impossible for a human to sift through all of them. And this is when technology comes in, and this is why all the technology solution providers come in. Then they use technology such as the big data analytics, under the bigger umbrella of machine learning, their GPT, their large language modeling that can help us to sift through these data and help us to really dig in, identify, even assess the green assets. So which companies that, or which projects that has what proportion of green revenue they have, what kind of carbon footprint they have, what kind of carbon target that they set. So once we find these that align with our climate goals, so that we can make better informed decisions in this sense, right? And then post investment also, that what we want the goal for us is actually to monitor, right? Once the money is put in, once it's been funded, how do we make sure that the projects or the companies or our portfolio is keeping on track of what they promised at the beginning? So there's something also other technologies such as sustainability data platform can come in, and they can provide analytics. They can do real-time tracking of the carbon footprint and environmental impact of these projects, so that we're making sure that these the longevity of these investments are guaranteed. And also, I think also in the report that we see that people also use blockchain technology to make sure the transparency of these data when they're on chain. And I think for us also, if we take a step back more, that we mentioned about these more specific workflows, is that what we're trying to do is, I think the fintech will really facilitate the establishment of this ESG database for us. And with this database, it can really not only help, it kind of bridges all the stakeholders together, right? Not only the investors, but investees. The investors can identify these investment opportunities, but the investees can help them to really use these data to help them to devise more green operations, right? To help them to practice better. And that way will benefit all parties. And in a sense, I think this is what Ivan mentioned in the beginning. This is how we kind of will scale this up and kind of push this thing a bit forward in the future. Yeah.
I'm very curious. It seems that very useful for that part, for the tech. But a very quick question: is that expensive?
Right. Glad you asked, actually. So when people discuss a lot about blockchain in the beginning, that the cost being very costly, but nowadays as the advancement, also the number of people that's dedicated to doing this, it's very affordable. So especially when things can be modularized, and like solutions like us, we can provide tailored and customized solutions also to different demands. So whether an organization is small, whether it's a listed company, we can provide, and with the government funding, also the subsidizing, it makes possible for all the smaller SMEs to make this disclosure and all this possible. So
and maybe even though like when the scaling is up, then the cost is low down, can be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
From Cindy, from consultants angle, do you think?
Well, I love the technology.
Must
obviously.
be important, right?
Yeah. So like blockchain, AI, right? We talk a lot and we collaborate quite a lot with obviously technology companies to deliver solution. But one thing that I wanted to highlight also, to build that sort of data that is comparable, you do need standardized framework, right? Measurement methodologies and whatnot, right? Because obviously, how do you measure carbon? Different sort of corporate might use different methodology. Is still a bunch of data that might not be useful. So going back to Penny's point, right? It's quite important for us to adopt internationally accepted principles. So for example, when we talk about emission, then we talk about GHG protocol. And I think one more point also is that, don't forget about, certification and assurance around some of these data. Sometimes, right, yes, somebody reported the figure, how reliable it is, right? How complete, how accurate it would be. So the point about, making sure key critical information that is important for investors to make informed decision, consideration of whether that should be verified, that should be assured by, obviously independent party. That is also quite important, right? So currently, a lot of these certification or verification assurance type thing on fund disclosure associated with, sustainability type information is still voluntary. So go forward, obviously EU has quite a lot more stringent sort of requirement. Could there be more that kind of requirements in the future? I think, wait and see, because, obviously depending on the, cost of implementation, the demand on investors. So I think obviously this is one of the areas to think about.
Yeah, so like what Lincoln also mentioned, besides the the monitoring of the data, also like blockchain you just mentioned earlier, like we offer also the investor to obtain those kind of confidence on the data. So how do we to scale up the adoption of such kind of technology? Yeah.
When we talk about I think confidence in the data, I think what we really mean is from my perspective is transparency, accessibility, and accuracy, right? So each technology, I think, can kind of help in the respective areas. So for example, blockchain that you mentioned, that it's a great tool for us to gauge the transparency of the data, because the nature of blockchain is that is uniqueness and it's traceable of each of the amendments. That's when something is on chain, right? But what it can do is, what it can guarantee is that the origin of the data, right? And that is reliable. So there's only so much technology can do. What we can do actually with others is that we, going back to using other technologies such as, you know, more language processing tools, is that we can process large number of data. In that sense, we can draw disparities, right? So we can draw disparity and we can cross compare, so that in a sense we backtrack and then kind of make it less forgiving for the original to disclose inaccurate data. And that way, I think we can try to kind of boost the confidence in that data in that sense. And what I believe in is that, you know, technology is only as good as the people that are using it, right? So we cannot have technology stand alone. We have to stay very relevant. For example, the new launch of the Green Hong Kong taxonomy, what many of the tech providers are trying to do is also to incorporate that in. And with all the regulations, all the frameworks that's been combined and released, CSRD in Europe and ISFC ES2 and all this GRI, and all, we were trying to make everything relevant for all the stakeholders so that it caters to all the scenarios. And with what I mean by people and technology is that we need to, I think the challenge is not really for us to adopt it. Adopting it is easy, but it's to find the fitting technology for the fitting scenario and with the fitting experts. So in that sense, this is a mutual effort together, right? Merely in the end of the day, the technology is only a tool. So how can we do as a group with all the experts here? And that's how we can scale it and push it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also one of my questions that I want to talk to you later, how to incorporate this blockchain. We tried other kinds of technology actually recently, before Lunar New Year, we have a green bond. The main body is the mainland China, but during we just issued this green bond, we are the first to adopt the carbon satellite and also the drone to help the company to disclose its Scope 1 carbon emission. So it's first of those kind of green bond to adopt those kind of technology. We think it's good, like what Cindy said, this is not compliance, but it's just voluntary. We did it, and we believe that through those kind of technology adoption, then the green bond we issuing can get more confidence from the investor. But for the fund, I still figuring out how to adopt those kind of technology, or maybe like what you mentioned, to include the blockchain technology.
Right. There's a wide chain of things, like you mentioned about using satellite imaging, right? What we use also using the remote sensing imaging as well is also part, and there's also pattern recognition. And there are a whole array of technology out there that can help us to, for example, we're talking about the flood in Henan, then all the physical risks also can be drawn and analyzed from the data. But the thing is that with all these technologies, we can capture all the data, but it still needs, at this stage, still needs to be processed by our experts and analysts, right? So the data, even though it's cleansed, it's structured, it still requires human eyes to review it and to make it more valuable for us and to make it more relevant for us. So Ivan, I think to answer your question is that we need to, there's a whole kind of selection of options for us out there, and then we just need to make sure that we find the right ones, and like you said, whether it's cost efficient, whether it's ease to implement, and combining all these criteria, then you can find the one for you, and we're happy to help, of course. So we can talk later.
We can chat later.
Absolutely.
But so like what you say, the technology is a tool, but you need to have some standard to rely on. So like the taxonomy that every of you have already talked about, and we know that Hong Kong taxonomy has been launched, incorporate the maintenance inside, also the EU's inside, also one of our contribution from our GFA, what was that called? China EU taxonomy, right? It's also one of the
common ground taxonomy.
Yes. Common taxonomy. Also one of the publication from our GFA. Yes. So Penny, I know you're the expert for this area. Any follow on that?
Yeah, I think Florence touched upon it earlier as well. You know, with all these taxonomies, just now you mentioned a few. The truth is there will never be a single taxonomy. I don't think. But I think the good thing about the Hong Kong taxonomy is that, like you said, it implemented a lot of things in that they drafted it with these other taxonomies in mind. So as a result, it should help guide people using it, stakeholder using it to go through the different, to navigate between these different taxonomy if they need to. And I think one important reason why we have taxonomy is to combat greenwashing risk, right? So I think this is an essential step for, again, coming back to disclosures, that is very important for people or investors to have a common policy or language, so to speak, to make the disclosure so that investors can make informed decisions.
How about the ISSB? Do you think is it related to this? Maybe not that related to the fund, but I think it's quite good to help Hong Kong to set up as a green finance hub. So how do you see that?
Yeah, the ISSB is on disclosure again. It's definitely good, and if you have not read, the Hong Kong government actually said they will be one of the first in Asia to adopt that. So I think this shows a commitment. Georgina already left. That the Hong Kong government is definitely looking to stay as a leader, as a green financial hub. So they're continuing their expansion, for example, of the Hong Kong taxonomy. The steering group is still working hard on different policies. So yes, definitely they're interlinked.
Actually, in mainland China, just this month, the three exchange also have announced the the ESG disclosure guidance, but it's just guidance, and it just encourage some for example, like the main board company or maybe the central owned company already did that, so they will just follow some guidance that they issue. But yeah, like what you mentioned, not always the only one standard, even though for the disclose. So from the law angle, do you see in the future there are some companies have some some conflict of that? For example, if a company there's an A+H listed company, so how do you see it?
Like I said, I don't think there will be one standard, but again, all these standards and taxonomies, they are kind of evolving, continuously evolving. And I think it's a common goal for all these jurisdictions to come up with something very versatile and that can be navigated between all these taxonomies.
Cindy, want to?
Yeah, I think on disclosure side, we are already quite lucky to see convergence of a lot of these standards anyway. So I think the China version of the sustainability reporting guidelines, there's quite a lot of resemblance on ISSB anyways. But there are obviously variation. So for corporates, obviously they want to follow the highest standard of both, if that makes sense. And because the more transparency you have, right, you follow international standard, then attracting international investors is a lot easier, right? So while there's still quite a lot of corporates going through that phase, right, there are still there are quite a lot of welcoming sort of attitude to adopt a lot of these international standards. So we do see that it's quite encouraging for obviously private companies. Potentially they don't need to follow, but to support showing their potential investors their sustainability commitments and their performance, some of these standards are actually very good for them to reference. And not only that, it's not just purely for disclosure. If you follow that framework, potentially you would be able to identify some ESG sustainability risk, but also opportunity as well. Yeah. So I think this is actually quite useful for companies, listed or, unlisted, to look into some of these, frameworks. So adopt that for, enhancing their own sustainability, strategy and also performance.
So do you think it's similar, when we go back to fund, is it similar theory that, a lot of fund classification for whether it is a private fund or not? So...
Yeah, I think so far in Europe, FSDR, right, they do have that fund labeling sort of regime, right? You have the dark green and the light green, but not so much in Hong Kong. We don't have that. Now, I don't think China have this sort of classification regime as well. So I think these are some of the better practice that potentially we can consider, particularly for international investor. They wanted to know, when I put the money, is it pure green? How green is this, right? Because there is just so complex sort of standard. It's very hard to articulate. So regulations like that actually might be helpful. But again, you know, we need to evaluate whether the market is ready for it, right? You know, you need solid taxonomy, right, in order to facilitate that classification as well. So, and coupled with, you know, obviously disclosure
regulations,
right? Regulations, how do you enforce, right? You know, these are some of the very important elements to consider before you roll out a similar sort of regime like what EU has.
How do you think about it? Do you think China will follow it, or maybe it's just a Chinese company? Maybe yeah.
Well, echoing what Cindy said, I actually do agree that it's something that I think the region GBA can look at different. The governments can definitely look at it, because, like Cindy said, you know, again, it's about high quality disclosures, the information that investors can get. And even from a fund's perspective, right, how do investment managers select the companies that they invest in? And then how investors decide whether these funds actually fall within, for example, a Article 9 and Article 8 fund. So again, it really, I think coupling with the tech, right, you have the tech to filter in all the data, but then ultimately, I think the whole ecosystem needs to be in place. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. So the time is not that much, so it's a final question for all of you. So like the question is, how can we get more PE funds or fund manager to develop, you know, green finance fund or products, or maybe what measure need to be happen to make the GBA climate fund more attractive to, like what we mentioned, international investor, because we're talking about cross-border capital flows today. So maybe from Cindy first. Yeah.
For fund managers to do more, right? I guess on the reverse, I think a lot of the fund managers are doing quite a lot already, I feel like. Rather, we do need the supply side, like the corporates. If they don't act, there is no qualifying investment pool to put money in. So I do think that is actually quite important for also corporates, no matter it's listed or unlisted, to look into that aspects. Otherwise, there is just no investments for the fund manager to invest in. So I think this is actually quite important, and the government obviously is, you know, supporting quite a lot of these areas as well. So we look to how the real economy is going to react to that. And so the fund manager would have quite a lot more investment pool to choose from.
Penny?
Well, I am coming from a funds lawyer perspective. I mean, we are not kidding ourselves. The market is quiet. So we see the success in the OFC grant scheme, and also that the Green and Sustainable Finance Grant Scheme has just also been extended. I think the government should definitely consider, for example, you know, extending the grant scheme to OFC and LPFs. I think that would definitely attract more fund managers to consider setting up those funds.
Okay, I guess from a text perspective, I would say something, I think, using a quote maybe from Bill Gates, is that he once said, if there's a problem, there's a solution, people will move to act. So if, like we said, it's a mutual effort together, right? Like we said, if we can bridge the gap between investors and investees to make it more attractive, whether it is to continue and to develop the regulations and to kind of encourage them to come together and to do more, I think at the end of the day, the problem will be tackled. It's a problem that we're people that dedicated to work towards. So I'm happy that all industries can kind of join hand together and work towards, and to just make it more fun, you know, attractive for.
For me, I'm the one who really trying to set up those kind of QFLP funds. Yeah, but I won't talk more here. But yeah, actually, it's very hard, very difficult, because you know the challenge of foreign already sum up, and what we're talking about is about really the challenge and how to solve it. But for me, I think there's something we also need to mind is one more thing is the carbon pricing. You know, from the number of the fund that Penny supplies me, we have 200 something, right? We have 200 something of these funds already setting up here. But for the money that raising, I remember in our report, it's the 10 times for overseas and mainland China. But for the fund number, it's quite similar. So what was that? Why caused that? So for my opinion, it's the carbon price. What in EU, even though the price is kind of low comparing with last year, it's still around 70 US dollar per ton in EU. But in mainland China, even though the price is already is the highest one ever, it's like around 100 RMB per ton. So the price difference is like 8 to 12 times. And you know what, like Hai-O talked to me before we are setting up start this session. We talk about the cross-border, the CBAM, the cross-border adjustment mechanism. So like now, if you want to export some goods to EU, actually the EU will charge for the something similar to carbon, what we say carbon tax. So how you calculate? The formulation is A minus B multiple C. A is the European price. B is the, for example, if China is export, so this is a China carbon price. So the price difference is around 10 times there, right? And multiple by the C is the carbon footprint for those kind of goods. So you might think that it's easier for us to, for example, raising up this B, right? If raising up this B to similar to equal to A, that means we don't need to pay, right? It's quite simple from the formulation, right? But actually, from mainland China's angle, it's hard. If you're raising up those prices in mainland China, what's that mean? That means another burden for the company, for the compliance company. For example, like the power generation company, for the cement company, for the iron company. Actually, the days are very hard. I think maybe Cindy, as their consultant, you know, right? So if now if you want to raise up their price internally, I mean, in mainland China for 10 times, how come? They will say, I will die. I don't want to do anymore. So, but if you don't just keep the B on the same level as now, that means you need to pay that kind of price margin directly to EU. So it's quite hard. Okay, quite hard. So like Hong Kong, actually, I'm also one of the experts to support FSDC to drafting a proposal. Last year, we already submitted a report to the Hong Kong government, and this year we will be another one. So we want to encourage, or maybe we want to ask that Hong Kong to be a hub for the carbon trading to help. Hong Kong is just backing up mainland China, and mainland China, from the whole market capacity, from the size, is already the world's largest carbon market. But for the price, it's not, and for the transaction volume, it's not. It's in EU. But how Hong Kong can be a hub for the trading to help China to do this kind of carbon pricing? We don't say 10 times. Maybe just bridging this price gap, right? And then it will help us to do the same thing. We also do the same 20 to 200 something funds, but we can have more money, right? So it's one of that is carbon pricing. Another thing I think what we need is the talent, right? Actually, for the carbon funding, you need a lot of talent, like what I said, the consultant, the lawyer, the tech guys. We need all of those people, but we need to have some expert in those areas to know climate change. We need them to know what is carbon finance, what is carbon pricing. So it's difficult for me, for our own team. When I'm hiring people, actually, I can't hiring someone in Hong Kong. My staff actually, most of them are from mainland China. So I think in Hong Kong we really lack of the the kind of like training and education for those areas. But it's not advertisement, but actually HKGFA has those kind of education training program. Yeah, so you can have, right, Jen, right? I'm a good member, right? Yeah. So like for example, tomorrow, okay, tomorrow I will deliver my course for HKGFA for the carbon financing part. I'm not doing advertisement, but I really want to advocate that Hong Kong really need education. Okay. So I think just maybe one more last sum up for each of the speaker. Okay. Maybe from Lincoln first this time.
I think you summarized it good, Ivan. Nothing much for me to add. I think, like Evan said, maybe I just reiterate it. it's just it's a group effort for us to face all the climate challenges in the future, and so but it's not achievable. So with definitely all the expertise from various fields that I believe that we can make great progress. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well, and I guess to be a good member as well, I think I look forward to the next GFA project that I can help with.
Yes. Collaboration. I think it's loud and clear, right? We need to work together. I do enjoy working with a group of team members, like contributing to that project, and we really hope that we're going to see the next GBA climate funds coming through a lot more.
Okay, what I want to sum up is we need a leader. So thank you this time, Florence and John, for your lead. Okay, and yeah, thank you. And any question from the audience first, maybe? And now also like a participant on online. Yeah, the Q&A session is about to start. Please feel free to drop your question in the online, so I can select and just ask the. But better if you want to ask specific speaker, you let me know. Okay. So any question from the floor? Yeah, welcome. Yeah. Peter. Yeah, Peter. Maybe you introduce yourself before. Okay, thank you.
My name is Peter Ho. I'm the Secretary General of the newly established Hong Kong Hydrogen Alliance. I think that's a great event today that there's a lot of going on in the financial sector. I really believe that the production side or the industrial side of the climate-related industry really need to have a more communication with the financial side. Okay, that's my suggestion.
Definitely, the real economy side need to connect with the, financial side of things. I think actually, HKGFA also, like in the past, like there is a lot more forums that we do have the real economy side sitting together with us, because that's the sector dying for capital, right? So thank you for that suggestion. Any other questions? Oh, Florence.
It's actually not a question, but I would say it's. I would like every one of us here who's interested in carbon or who really want to see carbon market, etc., to remember that science is science, money is money, and accounting, tax, legal are also very important. What I understand is at the moment there is no clear legal and hence accounting and hence taxation treatment of carbon transaction in mainland China, in the US, in the EU, different states, and also in Hong Kong. Now, in Hong Kong, it's easier because we don't have VAT sales tax. Okay. However, in mainland China, in EU, in US, in different locations, there could be what we call turnover tax. So whenever you have a chance to talk to government officials who's in charge or working in relation to carbon, please remind them, other than the scientific, using drones or satellite to detect carbon emissions, please think about the legal treatment. Now, of course, legal treatment, people tend to think this is intangible asset, which I would not dispute because I'm not a lawyer. Say if it's intangible asset, but if it's intangible assets, then we need to think of the accounting treatment because it could lead to amortization. And this could lead to impact on financial statements. Okay, and in many countries, the tax law often follow accounting treatment. That would also lead to tax issues. Now, the other thing is an intangible asset in China could also lead to VAT issue. In China, or maybe in some other countries, some of the carbon credits are actually allotted by the government to an enterprise. It's not purchased. So that means there's no input VAT to the owner of the carbon credit. So when that entity try to sell or transfer the carbon to another party, the transferor cannot issue input VAT invoice. However, there's a VAT cost there. Now, this is a tremendous issue if the volume of transaction and also the monetary amount of transaction shoot up. Now, this is something that we cannot ignore because it's not an over-the-counter transaction. If it's over-the-counter, it might be easier. Oh, let's go to the tax authority to get an advance confirmation, right? You can wait. Everyone can wait on a OTC perhaps. But if it's on a stock exchange, it's done by technology, right? So it's high volume. So this is something that I just want to alert everyone. So if you talk to a government, talk to stock exchange, talk to emission exchange, all right? So think about the potential legal, accounting, and taxation, because if those issues are not resolved and confirmed, either way, bad or positive or negative, okay, then you don't have certainty. If you don't have certainty, you cannot have a vibrant market. You may have a small volume of OTC transaction with friends, but you can't really, in particular for cross-border transactions. So when you talk about developing Hong Kong as a carbon market, Hong Kong as a middleman, of course we can fix our own tax rules, but we cannot interfere with other markets' tax rules. They have their own jurisdiction. But one thing that is music to our ears is in 2006, and when I first worked on the fund exemption regime, the generation number one, regime number one, in March 2006, before its launch, I actually strongly suggested the government to add carbon trading to the list of securities qualified for tax exemption. So Hong Kong is actually one of the pioneer financial markets in the world to exempt carbon trading, but it's not publicly, it's not very publicized. But so anyway, I mean, but we can work on our own exemption in Hong Kong, but what the other jurisdictions want to impose duties, VAT, taxation, that is something that we just want to pass the message on to friends outside of Hong Kong. They need to watch out if they want to grow the market. Thank you. Okay.
Question for Lincoln. How do you see the recently established digital exchange for helping the climate change investment fund? Any thoughts of you?
I don't think I'm too informed on the topic. So can you repeat again, Ivan, the recently established exchange?
Yeah, the digital exchange.
The late in Hong Kong?
Yeah, in Hong Kong.
I'm sorry, that question I think I'm not too informed to answer. But if we're talking about just going off the topic of trading, many nowadays that carbon assets are been developed to trade, so that actually many technology companies that they also develop their own or help to develop the carbon assets. There's a lot of, I think, but it's also very combined with, I think, the regulation stuff. So like also Florence was saying that things like this, when it's traded at a higher volume, how can we see the potential maybe, and how tech can pre-develop or foresee these, so that when it's coming at this volume, that we can really help to drive it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And any question from the floor? If not, that I think let's give applause to all the speakers again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for actually a really kind of fun discussion and the support. I must say that even with reports like this, which can be challenging, we do try to have fun, and I'd like to thank the support for that. Thank you also to Ivan for steering us through so skillfully through topics including taxonomy, disclosures, and affordable technology, right? So yeah, just finally, I'd like to thank also Shenzhen Climate Finance Committee, HKVCA, and of course PwC for hosting, and the energy and support of Florence, who always seems to find a way to kind of motivate everyone, even when people are tired and the work is hard. And just a reminder that for people looking for CPT, just complete the survey at the end, and we'll follow up with that. Just one quick reminder is that HKGFA will be hosting summer drinks on the 30th of May, and we also have our 5th and final biodiversity training series on 12th of June. And you can find details of that on our website. So once again, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.